Yeah, get it on. Got to get it on. No choice. Making on mandate. Get on. Welcome to CarCast. I'm Matt Carolla. It's Matt, the moderator. DeAndrea over there.
Hello.
Hey, man.
How you doing? Nice robe.
Thank you. Jimmy Kimmel bought it for me some years ago. Get a good robe, everybody. Boy, I'll tell you, it's really paying dividends. Yeah, I got up a little late in the swimming pool. I actually, there's a point when you make things like TV shows and movies and documentaries and stuff. There's a point where you get enough distance from the project where it's not really yours anymore. You could just watch it. You can literally just watch an old movie or an old something you did, and especially when you're not in it, you're kind of removed from it. And I ran into Mark. I didn't run into Mark Garagos. I saw Mark Garagos yesterday, and I saw him at the shop. He loved the Newman GT3 Porsche Petite Le Mans car. I don't even know, what is that thing? A GT3? What is that thing?
Yeah, it's a 2000. So just
Right.
some reference. It's fairly modern.
Yeah, Mark loved that car. Anyway, started talking, and he just looked at me, and he went, man, I don't know how I missed it the first time around, but the 24-hour war, man, what a story. And he said, 10 minutes in, he was just drawn in, and it just kept going, and I was like, yeah, it's a cool story. I don't think I've watched that movie, in months or years or whatever it came out. Like I've saw it, you see 1,000 different versions of it. Anyway, last night I was like, had Mark's voice ringing my ear about the 24-hour war, and I just like watched the first hour of it. I just watched it like I never made it. I was just like, man, this is good. Like I love this story. Look at these Italian guys and Ferrari, and then I was like looking at it, and I was like, oh, that's Ken Miles from Ford v Ferrari. That's what he really looked like,
Yeah.
And I was just kind of enjoying it as a spectator. So what a day, what a story. I don't think that'll ever. God, you think about those times. Like, think about California right now,
Yeah.
and what colossal fucking pussies we've all turned into. And then think about Carroll Shelby and those guys in those days in Venice Beach.
Yeah.
Actually, I was thinking about, I also had it on my mind too, because right about the time, I've never really thought about this, but I interviewed last week on ACS Robbie Krieger, the guitar player from The Doors. And those guys had like met and were hanging out in Venice Beach. Probably, the band sort of formed in like 1965. So like Shelby was there. Shelby was building Cobras. I guess the Daytona was probably first built in 64. You have to look up like what month that was in 64. But at the same time, Shelby was like doing his thing in Venice Beach. Jim Morrison and Ray Manzarek were like doing their thing like 200 feet away. They couldn't have been more different. Now everyone's just a big fucking pussy. That's what we've turned into. But that's what we used to be. We used to be that.
I watched when Ford v Ferrari came out. I watched the Shelby doc and then Ford v Ferrari like back to back. Like watched the doc, then went to the theater and saw Ford v Ferrari, and just kind of wanted to see them sort of back to back and go, oh, this is the story and what these guys did, and here's sort of the romantic version that Hollywood put together, and both, and I know we've said this before, both films are fantastic. You can kind of pick the facts out of the doc and compare it to the movie, but the movie's still very good and entertaining in its own right. It's just a good standalone movie, regardless of some of the facts changing here and there. But you weren't disappointed. I know a lot of people are like, this part I don't get. It's like every time a movie comes out, somebody goes, the book was better. It's like, okay, but I didn't read the book. I just saw the movie, so it was fine. And
I think there's a little pressure on car guys. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
the Patrick Dempseys of the world and guys like that to kind of go like, it wasn't that good, or like basically saying, I know the story. That wasn't the story. Part of it is your bona fides. Like, hey man, I
Yeah.
was there. I know how that went down. My feeling is look, first off, I enjoyed Cobra by
Yeah.
Stallone a lot. I saw
The book was
Daylight.
better.
I watched the hell out of Daylight, where he was trapped in the Holland Tunnel.
Yeah.
Uh, I can't really turn my nose up on movies when I like to watch bad movies. Um, first off, why do it to yourself? Like, why go, that was no good? Why not enjoy the movie? Number one, or try to enjoy the movie. And number two, um, it's fine. Just because you know things doesn't, you don't have to ruin it. But it's true. Like, I talked to, when I was interviewing Robbie Krieger, he was like, I was on the set when they made The Doors,
Mhm.
with Oliver Stone, and I was like, oh, I love that movie. And he's like, yeah, it could have done some things differently. And I'm like, yeah, you can't. Robbie Krieger can't enjoy it because Robbie Krieger knows the story of how the song Light My Fire was created.
Yeah.
And the story is Jim Morrison basically said, hey, I can't write all the songs. You guys need to write some songs. And then told like Robbie Krieger when he was like 19 or 20, like, go home and write a song. And write it about, something universal or something, and love or earth or sky or fire or something. That was Robbie's thought on it. And it was funny. He said this thing that made me think sometimes of my life. He goes, I went home and I wrote Light My Fire. And then, I came back the next day with Light My Fire. And then he goes, nobody else did it. And I thought, oh yeah, I feel like that's my life, where someone goes, all right, everyone, we're going to do this. And then I go home and do it. And then I come back and I look around at all my goofball friends and no one did whatever,
No one did the work. No one did the homework.
whatever we were supposed to do. So he just came back with Light My Fire, and that was it. They wrote it. Now, like in the movie, Jim is like discovering it for him and, telling him, and Robbie's like, I have a loose idea for a song. And Jim's like, well, it should go this way instead. Now, obviously, if you just went home and wrote the song and brought it in and it was your band's first number one hit and broke you guys, you wouldn't want it to look like it was a big collaboration.
Yeah.
But that's what happens when you make a movie. So anyone who knows too much about that story, like Robbie Krieger, is not going to enjoy that film. I just went to the movie theater when I was 26 and enjoyed the film.
Yeah.
All right. So you want to talk about Stirling Moss?
I thought maybe we must have seen him or run into him. I don't know if we ever had a chance to interview him for anything, for Going Race or anything, but we've seen him at Goodwood. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and I just remember like walking around and seeing the little guy blow by and going, hey, that was Stirling Moss.
Right.
And Stirling Moss, as you guys know, unfortunately passed away, but had a nice long life of 90 years old. And I just started looking a little bit more into his career, and then you and I talked a little bit this week, just casually on the phone, saying, "Hey, Stirling Moss is a name that's synonymous with racing for forever, but he had a short career. I mean, he was out when he was 31 years old, so for the next almost 60 years." What do you need to do to stay relevant? Like you're constantly involved in the racing world, or you're a likable guy, and people want to do stuff with you and invite you to things and get your input on things. But he started racing very young. I want to say he was like 17 years old when he started racing, and I think he won, Chris can double check, like 16 of his 66 races
That's right.
and then was in a terrible car accident when he was 31 years old, which resulted in him being in a coma for a month,
Well, I'm
and
looking.
and then it ended his racing career.
I'm
And he was
looking
31 years
down.
old.
I got a piece of paper here, and it says he raced from 48 to 62, winning 212 of the 529 races he entered.
Well, the 61 races out of 66 was F1. So I
Oh,
don't know.
16 out of
No, 16.
66
Yeah,
was F1.
that was F1. So I don't know if there are
Oh,
other.
okay.
Yeah. Uh,
Yeah, that's a very high. 212 out of 530 races is quite a winning percentage. You don't see that. And yeah, that was just F1, 24 podiums, 16 wins, um, 0 championships. But
I'm
he
also
had that
seeing
horrible injury. What?
he raced in 107 different types of cars.
Mm.
huh,
So very
that's a
versatile.
lot.
See, I have drove 84 different makes of cars over the course of his racing career, but who the hell knows? The point is this. He was a prolific racer, and Goodwood is where he crashed. Goodwood turned out to be a little too dangerous, and that's why they shut it down. I don't know if McLaren died at Goodwood too, or was it like Silverstone or something? Did McLaren die testing at Goodwood? The other weird, it's weird when you see these guys, and you realize, I always bring it up to you, like how many of these guys died testing. You just don't think of testing as dangerous as in a race. But
Yeah.
when you look at, when you think of, so McLaren died
Bruce McLaren
testing.
died age 32 when his Can-Am car crashed on the Levant Straight while he was testing the new McLaren M8D at Goodwood Circuit.
Huh.
Yeah, Goodwood
1970.
got, I mean, they stopped racing there, I think, in 66. Like, it was too dangerous. Now they have a big race there every year. It's great. But McLaren died testing. God, could that guy imagine how his name would carry on? And Ken Miles, of course, died testing. Donahue died testing as well. Donahue, who drove all the Porsche Trans Am cars, or sorry, Can Am Porsches, the 91730s. He set the speed record at like Talladega in the Porsche 91730 and stuff. He died shortly thereafter, I think, testing F1. And Mark Donahue. And then the other weird thing is like, if you look at like Ford v Ferrari, and they'll have that thing where like they're at Daytona, and here comes Ken Miles, and there's Walt Haskins, and they're looking at each other and whatever, and then you go, Walt Haskins, oh, that guy died a few months later when they went to Le Mans. He was testing. Walt Haskins was testing a GT40 at Le Mans, and he died testing. It's a lot of died testing. Just
Yeah.
kind of interesting. And if you watch Ford v Ferrari, and you see him going down the straightaway, and there's that sort of evil Ferrari driver, and he's like, they're looking at each other, and Ken Miles looking at him, and he's looking at him, and they're going down the thing. I'll think of that guy as like Benzini or something. That guy died a couple of months later in an F1 crash, like a horrible
Jeez.
fire. Like, you just look at these ancillary guys, like they're not making these guys up. That's it's not Roberto. It's like it's Gonzini or something. I'll think of the guy's name. I got it written down somewhere. But the point is he's the nemesis. He's the Ferrari nemesis, tough guy driver for Ferrari that Ken Miles, who's leading. So the guy's leading the Le Mans, and Ken's got to catch him, but he breaks his car and blah, blah, blah. And and then he's dead in this horrible fiery crash, like just, I think at Monaco, like a few months later. So it's like all these names who are even around these people are dead half the time. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously the guy who won that race with Ken Miles, McLaren, he's dead. Like there was just so much. Could you imagine that amount of death in a sport today?
And so much damage. Like Stirling Moss broke both his legs and screwed himself up in 1960, and then 2 years later was his bigger accident at Goodwood, which ended his career and put him in a coma. But it wasn't his first, like significant damage. And the Goodwood event, he was in an F1 car with no seatbelt.
Right. Well, they didn't want to catch on. They want to catch on fire. Lorenzo Bandini, that's the guy.
Yeah.
There's film of his F1 crash. I mean, it's just a fiery mess. So it's funny. Yeah, he wasn't. Stirling Moss wasn't wearing a seatbelt. Lorenzo Bandini's car just caught on fire. Like,
yeah.
I don't know why they couldn't fucking figure out the fuel situation. Like nobody done nobody could conceive of a bladder.
I guess not. I don't know. It's kind of a weird thing. A good question for Pete Brock, right? Somebody who was there during some of this stuff. But
well, I mean, fire was such a look. The thing about fire is the reason none of those guys wanted to get bolted into a car is because of fire. So because nobody wanted a cage and a 6-way harness and a blah, blah, blah because of fire. So if you could have eliminated the fire, you then could have stepped up with your harnesses and your roll bars and your other stuff. You could have stepped up the harness game. But no one wanted to get harnessed in until they figured out the fire situation. And all they had was an aluminum can with tons of gas in it. That obviously is not going to work for a fire. And the only conceivable option would be to put a bladder inside of the tank, inside the aluminum tank. You have Lorenzo Bandini.
Yeah, I love that name, by the way.
It's a great name. He's at Monaco the next year. He's at Le Mans 66. He's at Monaco in 67. He's buzzing around the track. And then all of a sudden, there's a ball of fire, and he's gone. It was
instant fire, instant ball of fire. You're right.
Instant ball of fire.
It's almost like it's dangerous on purpose, like to a fault. Like just, it's amazing how boom, instant fire. It's just all fuel and flames at that point. You're right. There's no. I don't know, like what kind of thin gauge metals happening with, for lightweight on a fuel tank and
I guarantee that that's 1967. I don't know when the first bladder hit, but and that footage is kind of weird. It looks like there's a cut. It's kind of hard to tell, but it just looks like he caught a tire on something and just flames.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's the thing. I guarantee you that the military had aircraft with tanks that had like self-sealing or whatever tanks or bladders or some form of that by 1967. I mean, by 1967, the military was launching, F4 Phantoms off of jet. Probably or A4s or whatever, probably F4s and A4s off fucking decks in the Gulf of Tonkin. I mean, we should have had a bladder and a fucking tank and a car.
Yeah, at least, well, this is where the weight thing comes in, where at the very least there was probably different type of blast shields and fire shields and reinforced metal plates and stuff where a little extra weight probably is worth the level of safety that you're getting, because that, the Bandini crash, that that instant ball of flame doesn't look like just a fuel line. Like you'd never get that much fuel out of a fuel line that quickly.
No.
Like
And
that's the tank. That's just boom, it's a ball of fire,
right. Um, when do you think the first fuel bladder? Now it's going to be tough to say was in use, but was mandatory in F1.
Oh, I don't know.
That's an interesting question, right? I mean, they had them in road racing. A lot of my, I got Datsun Roadsters that have a fuel cell, the fuel bladder in them. I mean, it's not the same bladder because they deteriorate over years, but they probably had a fuel bladder back in the day. I'd be curious as to when those were in use. When did the
Well,
fuel
I think
bladder?
I think a self-sealing fuel tank original patent was submitted in 1918, and then somehow it was rescinded, and then a self-puncture sealing covering for fuel containers, I believe, got a patent in 1921.
Yeah, that's a little bit of help, but it's not really
No, but
the
but
answer.
it just means that the technology was
Yeah, somebody was
was
thinking
there.
about it.
Yeah.
Look, look in the 60s, we had military jets that were capable of going supersonic. What's up with the tanks on the F1 cars? When did F1? When was the rule that all the cars had to have fuel cells? And when was it for GT cars or NASCAR?
Yeah, or NASCAR or something. I'm
It's hard to find, but I'm seeing for F1, 1970 is when that style of bag tanks were made mandatory to prevent ruptures, fuel spillage, and fire.
Sounds about right. Like,
yeah.
obviously in the late 60s, you didn't see it, and you didn't really see all the fires in 75. So it must have been right about 70. But again, not sure why they didn't fucking implement that or get to work on it. I mean, if I went to Sean in the back of my shop and I said, "Hey, Sean, there's an issue with these lightweight aluminum boxes called fuel tanks blowing up and everyone burning. Like, could you work on it?" It'd take him about 3 days to figure out that if he put a ballistic type rubber in the lining of the tank that wasn't degraded by the fuel, that would go a pretty fucking long way in preventing this shit.
Yeah.
I don't feel like it was that tall an order.
Right. And to your point, this isn't because one guy got hurt and they're going, oh, maybe we need it, maybe we don't. Like, we're already going on decades of people getting hurt or killed and caught on fire.
What it is, but it's a ripple effect, because if everyone's greatest nightmare is to burn alive, everyone's greatest fear is to burn alive in a car that's turned over on them, right? Like that's the greatest fear of every driver. Well, then no one's going to wear a seatbelt. They're just gonna take their chances outside of the car.
Yeah.
All right, let me hit Bet Online. Nothing to bet on, right? Wrong. Bet Online has hundreds of ways to wager. They bring Vegas to you. Online poker, blackjack. Yeah, have a little fun during the quarantine. Miss the NFL? Live daily Madden NFL. 20 simulations to wager on. Plus, Big Brother, American Idol, stocks, even Nathan's hot dog eating contest. That's coming up. Yeah. Tune into the end of this podcast for Rob's sister Nino's interview with Joey Chestnut, Bet Online, and Bet Online's Dave Mason on the Bet Online quarantine challenge this weekend. Bet Online, our exclusive partner, Podcast One. Sign up for free account with promo code Podcast One for 100% sign up bonus. Visit betonline.ag. Don't forget promo code Podcast One for your 100% sign up bonus. All right, what else we got?
I was just curious, is the hot dog eating champion, is that guy rich? Like, what are the accolades for eating the most hot dogs? Like, other than free hot dogs?
Well, Joey Chestnut I interviewed years ago on my morning show. He was working, like, I don't know if he was doing construction or like working in a warehouse or something, but he was definitely had a day job. Kobayashi was the big favorite to win. He was winning. The Japanese fella was winning everything, and Joey's like nipping at his heels. At some point, Joey passed him and has been dominating like ever since. And I don't even know if Kobayashi does it anymore. Now, I didn't answer your question.
I mean, does Chestnut still work at Home Depot, or like what's going on?
I don't think, what he does, to the best of my knowledge, is he does hot dog eating, then he does rib eating, then he does like hot wing eating and blah, blah, blah. I'm not a fan of the rib and the hot wing because there's a bone involved, and it's, it's not technical enough. I like the whole thing to be gone.
Yeah. Well, I get you. Like, you watch the Olympics and somebody was running track or something at the Olympics doing the hurdles, but we don't see as like through the course of the year they're doing, world championships and whatever. So I guess you got to just keep eating throughout the year.
We have just the online celebrity net worth, and we know how wildly that can vary. But you want to guess what you think it is?
I $2 million.
Yeah, that doesn't seem wildly off to me. That I mean, there's endorsements, I guess. I'm gonna go 1.5.
Oh, damn it! It's literally 1.5 to $2 million. This game's
I looked it up earlier in the week.
Well, I guess Nike is not a part of the hot dog eating competition because it seems a little low for one of their endorsements. Kind of counteracts the whole be athletic and fit kind of thing.
Well, the thing that's funny is Joey used to be what you just call like a big husky dude, but he's now lean and mean, that he's winning all these eating competitions. And Kobayashi, who used to win all the competitions, was a freak. Like, that guy had a six-pack and was like, I don't know, Kobayashi, as I recall, was like, 5'10", 160 and like shredded. Like, so it really, I know everyone kind of has that like Monty Python version of the big eaters, but it turns out the guys that are in fantastic shape and better athletes tend to be better at it.
Yeah.
That's my experience.
I don't know why we went off on this, but I was just curious because I'm sure you talked to the guys at some point. I'm just wondering what the way the day-to-day life.
The way I met Joe Coy, many years ago is he was Kobayashi. He would play Kobayashi on the radio, and he would call in, and he would taunt Joey Chestnut. And Joey didn't even really fully know, like, if that was, Kobayashi or like who this guy was, but he'd play these. He'd call in and taunt him, and I didn't even know who Joe Coy was. Like, I didn't know all the stand-up comedians. This is 13 years ago or something, 14 years ago or something. And, Mike August was just like, I got this guy's going to play Kobayashi. Like, I don't even think he told me it was Joe Coy, because I was like, who's Joe Coy? Like, I don't know who this person is, but that's who he is. And so he would call in as Kobayashi. And, 2 months ago, I opened for him at the Forum. So
he opened for Joey Chestnut.
Yeah, so keep going, everybody.
Yeah,
you never know what the future holds. Yeah. But from the time he was doing that show, I mean, he was doing my show in like, I don't know, 07, maybe 08. I don't remember. It had been a while since from the time he was unknown doing Kobayashi on my show to the time he was selling out the Forum, but he kept at it, kids. So if you're listening, that's the idea, right?
Yeah.
So let's see. Ford Mach-E electric specs. You have something for us?
Yeah, I was looking for some good news in the automotive world,
Mhm.
and everything seems to be, between Kyle Larson and Mike LaValle dime. I don't know if you know Mike LaValle. We talked about it earlier this week with Goldberg, and I went into it because he knew him well. Mike LaValle was the airbrush painter on overhauling. He did real flames. He did like a
Right.
lot of the airbrush stuff. He died last night as
Oh,
Tuesday night.
how old was he?
60, I believe. He had a stroke. He was in the
Oh.
hospital, and a lot of the fans were rallying for him. He's a nice guy, but so I was looking for some good news in the car world, and the Ford Mach-E, which is the electric little crossover SUV type vehicle that will be coming out soon. That I like. I think it looks really good. I went for a ride in one.
Mm-hmm.
Now the information is coming out and saying, hey, we can revise the numbers. It's going to have a little more horsepower, a little more horsepower and torque than we thought. And, we were kind of breaking it down a little bit about how does this stuff kind of happen. And it's like when you go and you buy, you go buy your Mustang GT, it needs to have the right balance between fuel efficiency and emissions and performance.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as you take it and you bring it home, you can do whatever you want, and you can put a tune in it and get 35 extra horsepower, but you might lose another mile per gallon or something in the process, and that's fine.
Right.
And so Ford has to do a thing, especially with the electric cars. They can say, hey, it goes 0 to 60 in 5.5 seconds. Can it do it in 5.1? Sure, we can just adjust the software. But now what does that do to the overall range of the vehicle?
Right.
So what they figured out is, hey, we can make this thing perform a little bit better, turn up the power, and not alter the range.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the revised numbers are coming from. So, it's on average, whatever, 15, 16 horsepower bumps, 11, 12 foot-pounds of torque. But who knows? Maybe that translates to another tenth off the 0 to 60 or something like that, depending on whatever mode you're in. But it seems to be like the range will still be about 230 on the low end for the low battery, I think, or it might be 210 on the low end and 300 on the high end. But
with the range, yeah,
with the different batteries that they're going to have available, and all-wheel drive versus rear-wheel drive.
My kids are turning 14 in a few months, or maybe a month, or maybe, let's see, when are we? Month and a half, whatever.
Chris can Google it.
Chris will Google it. My kids are turning 14 soon.
Yeah.
When they turn 16 2 years from now, they're not going to buy a gas car, are they?
I don't know that they do, because first of all, the electric cars are becoming more affordable. You're talking about, Tesla, Nissan Leaf, Tesla, Model 3, and these Mustang Mach-E's are going to start at like 44 grand. Sure, they can get up to 60,000 or so, but or more, but they're not $120,000 cars anymore. Like you can get this into a pretty good price range. And yeah, it's like, we like what we like, and it's kind of fun to have, the loud whatever muscle car or truck or something.
Yeah,
but
that's for us. I mean, my kids they're not gonna want that.
Right, but it is kind of coming to a point where I go, hey, if we got to go to the studio of a few days a week, or go to Orange County to do podcasts or whatever, an electric Mach-E wouldn't be bad to have. You're not going to take away the other things that I like, the other cars, the loud whatever. But why not have the have the cool kind of electric car, one that's now it's fun to drive and it looks good and it's kind of sporty.
Yeah, no, I think we're there. I think is the Mustang, is the Ford E Mustang, whatever, is that all available? Could I if I went down to Galpin and I talked to Bo Bachman and I said, hey, I really want one of those cars like pronto, how long would it take?
Okay, so It was supposed to be available soon, but with the coronavirus thing, they're delaying the launch. Orders were taken for the first edition, and I
Mm-hmm.
think that's sold out. And
Mm-hmm.
then I think there's going to be another like sort of order process happening, but you can't go to the dealer and get one right now. It's still going to be, I don't know the exact date on it yet. I don't know. It's looking like 2021. It's going to be a little bit.
Right. So I will. How about this? we're close. Like we're really close now. There's a lot of options. The price is down. Have the Leaf and the Bolt, Volt or Bolt, Bolt.
Yeah, the Volt is gone now. We have a Bolt.
We have a Bolt. Tesla has the 3. A lot of options. A lot of whatever. Like we're there right now, but infrastructure, a little bit, range, still can't get, well, I don't know. Can we get from here to Vegas? What's Vegas? 200 and something miles?
Yeah, but there's like a fast charger or something on the way.
Right.
At least for the Teslas, I'm not sure how it works with the other cars.
Ford stuff you couldn't get tomorrow. You'd have to wait a year or whatever it is. I'm going to say that, and I'm going to proclaim this. I'm going to proclaim that when my 2 twins turn 16 2 years from now, that will be the point where we tipped. That'll be the first time it doesn't make sense not to get an electric car. Now, we all know that, Rob Schneider pulled up in his Tesla Roadster 8 years ago or whatever, and it was like, hey, he's an eccentric celebrity with no kids, fine. And he's a dwarf. So let him drive a Tesla, let him pay $120,000 for whatever.
Yeah.
And then it started getting into the Leaf and stuff, but the range, or the BMW whatever, but the range and blah, blah, blah. And then now we're at a point where it's like, my wife drives an electric car. I don't. It makes sense for her, maybe not so much for me. I say when my kids turn 16, like literally throughout the course of history, you'll be able to look back to that date, 2022, and go, that's the year it actually made more sense financially, spiritually, whatever. Like it actually, the environmental movement, everything else, it actually made more sense to drive an electric at that point. At this point, it's a little like, that's a little bit of a coin toss, maybe the gas.
But I would also add to that argument in that the cars are going to be cooler by then. So,
Right. Sure.
16-year-old, 17-year-old Sonny and Natalia are going to go, hey, Dad, that thing looks cool. Check out this kind of Mustang looking thing, this sporty thing. And it's no longer, making a statement or kind of a hipster thing or even an affluent thing. Like they're more affordable. They look kind of cool.
Yeah.
Bright colors.
Well,
and
that's all part of the equation, but that's all part of the more sense. We're right there. I'd say when my kids turn 16, we'll go electric. Let me hit Geico. Chris has a question about a Newman 911. Sean's sawing up the tail of the Sebring 911 as we speak. Talk about that maybe another show. Take some pictures of it. Geico, everyone. You want to? You have homeowners insurance. You have renters insurance. Why don't we bundle? We'll get our bundle on at Geico. You just go to geico.com. Take either homeowners or your renters insurance and bundle it with your auto insurance and save a bunch of money and make things a little easier on yourself. That is Geico at geico.com. Makes it so much easier to bundle at Geico. That's geico.com. All right, Max Pata, Porsche question.
So it's actually about the tail. So I looked at Sean's Instagram and he posted this picture of we talked about it 2 weeks ago, of the 911S Porsche, how they had that wing under the tail. So Sean posted a picture of him fabricating it almost the day of you mentioning
yeah.
And then later on, I just see this picture which is everything taken apart. And I was just curious as to what
Oh,
happened.
not just taken apart. That's all cut up.
Yeah, that's not taken apart. That's cut apart.
Yeah,
Oh, geez.
that's you get one shot. That's what it is.
Yes, I guess I'm just asking for an update on what's going on.
Sean's got his wheel out and his pneumatic cutter and his wheel, and he's cutting everything with his wheel. By the way, people, don't use like a Sawzall or a jigsaw, like a reciprocating blade when you're cutting fiberglass like this, or many things. Use a wheel, a very thin wheel. It's so much easier to do it. He's taking the existing fiberglass deck lid with a big tail in it, and he's cutting out a lot of it, and he's shortening it up, and he's making a lot more narrow, and he's going to put it all back together and have to re-glass it and repaint it, and restripe it, and re-everything it. But it was my decision that this car, since it went back to the paint scheme that it had in 1977 when it ran at Sebring with Bill Freeman and Paul Newman driving it, it needed the tail that was correct as well. And the tail was not correct. The tail was off a more modern car, and or I shouldn't even say a more modern car, just it wasn't modified as this one was modified. They put these side canards or skirts on it. They shortened it up. It looks really cool. I know it didn't work that well because no one else adopted it. But either way, that was the car as it raced at Sebring in 1977. And I was like, well, then that's what we have to put it back to. And it was definitely bespoke. I have never seen another Porsche with that modification on its tail. And Matt and I have walked through many paddocks and looked at many Porsches, right?
We've never seen this before. I'm so curious to how this is going to change anything. Now, you haven't driven the car yet, so there's not going to be sort of an apples to apples comparison, but I'm just so curious as to what they were thinking when they did it. And I mean, we can make some assumptions and what the result was and why it didn't show up again.
And it went to Bullwinkle racing after this, and it stayed that way for a little while, and then at some point they switched it. All right, so you can, where do you go to follow all this stuff, Max? Pat, our YouTube page?
Yeah, check out our YouTube page. Just go to carcastshow.com. All the links are there. Find this podcast, the YouTube, everything.
And you can go to Chassis, CHASSY, and get the Blu-ray or the poster, the T-shirt or whatever, Uppity and all those movies as well. I think we'll even sign them and send them out to you when this whole thing blows over. And you can go to amcarolla.com. I got my new book, I'll Be Your Emotional Support Animal, and that's available for pre-order on Amazon, and you can get the audiobook as well. Matt, what do you got?
Just posting some stuff, some old photos and new stuff, all of my social media up on Motorator.
So until next time, Adam Carolla for Matt the Motorator, DeAndrea saying, keep the air in the spare and the bag in the wheel.